My name is Catherine Watt. I'm the Chief Curator here at the National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. We've just opened a photography exhibition called She Who Tells a Story, Women Photographers from Iran and the Arab World. I think most of us in the Western world, and perhaps specifically in the U.S., have the knowledge that we have about the Middle East region based on information that we get from the internet or from television or from magazines. And I think there's this monolithic idea, particularly about women from this part of the world, that they are somehow defined by oppression, by being oppressed. And that is such a limiting and tiny viewpoint, and that's something that I think this exhibition blows apart. The women in this exhibition are so creative in their view of the world and the way they communicate their vision, and that's something that's been really moving, not only for the staff that is here working on the exhibition, but the visitors that have come through so far. The triptych photograph that's here by Lala Assaidi, who is a Moroccan-born artist, really plays on conventions, stereotypes, that developed in the 18th and 19th centuries. We call them Orientalism now, this sort of Western view of the East as an extremely exotic and strange world, populated with these very sensual women who are kept behind closed doors in harems and so forth. And this is a topic, Orientalism, that a number of artists in this exhibition take on and critique and really break apart. So Lala works really in a performance mode. She's not only making the photograph you see on the wall is actually the very end of her process. She is creating the costumes, she's developing the sets, she's working with a whole team of people to create her concept and execute it. And she's really looking at the idea of that body of the Eastern woman. And by printing it so large as well, she is sort of pointing out to the West, you know, this is this huge view that you've had and that you've sustained for so long that is so limited and untrue, in fact. And this involves her creativity, her view, and as a woman sort of looking at this type of figure. One thing that's so interesting about this that's a big surprise to people when they come into the exhibition, when you stand away from it, it looks like glittering luxury and opulence. It's very appealing, it draws you in. And in fact, Lala has a wonderful saying. She said, beauty is dangerous because it helps you believe the fantasy. So you're drawn to the beauty of the image, but when you get up close to it, you realize that, in fact, each of the glimmering elements in the image are made from cut and polished bullet casings that she has gathered. So the idea of beauty mixed with violence, the threat of violence, people who live in areas of conflict for sustained periods feel that this just becomes imbued in their lives, something that they can't escape. This is a photograph by a Yemeni-born artist, Bushra al-Mutawakkil, an image that started off a series that she continues to work on called The Hijab. She made it shortly after 9/11, when she witnessed the change in the tenor, the tone of the media toward the Middle East region, and specifically toward the idea of women wearing the headscarf, choosing to wear the headscarf, and what that meant, the way that the West was interpreting that and worrying about it, frankly. So Bushra decided that she was going to take a hard look at that. And this is a photograph that certainly pushes some buttons, and I believe that it's intended to do so. We see a young woman with an American flag draped over her head in the form of a hijab. And it makes people wonder, I think, especially considering the time in which she made it, is she with us or against us? I think that was the knee-jerk reaction that folks had at the time, and I think continues to resonate today. But when I'm in here with groups, I'm so moved by how people, when they actually take time to stop and look at this and consider it and consider all of the elements, have a very different response to it. So one of the first things that people notice is how open and lovely her face is in terms of being welcoming, and these bright eyes and this gentle smile and so forth. So there's a wonderful, gentle quality to the image. And then the flag is sort of an afterthought. And I love to tell the story when I'm giving tours through here of sharing this photograph with one of my colleagues. And I said, what do you think of when you look at this image? I'm a little bit concerned about how it might be received by our visitors, given the tenor of the times and current events and so forth. And he looked at it for a split second and said, I take her at her word. And that's really the response that we've had primarily from visitors coming through here, that if you wear on your head something that is a sign of your belief and your conviction, and you choose the American flag, then that is quite a different idea than I think most Americans have about the hijab and the impulse behind wearing it. This is a 9-photograph series by the Yemeni-born artist Bushra al-Mutawakkil, continuing her exploration of the veil, the meaning of the veil, the appearance of the veil, the interpretation of the veil, particularly by the West. And it actually shows the artist seated with the eldest of her 4 daughters, and the daughter is holding one of her baby dolls. And what you see as you progress through the 9 images is an image of the artist, the woman with a veil on and so forth, and her clothing and the child's clothing gets progressively more covered up, more obscured, the bodies are more obscured and so forth, until you get to the final panel, the 9th panel, in which you just see an empty stool where the bodies of the mother, the daughter, and the doll are gone. And this is, I think, Bushra's expression of concern about trends in veiling and when veils become politicized rather than being part of a personal fashion expression or a cultural expression or a community expression. When that impulse takes over, what are the implications of that? And I think she's taking a hard look at that topic here. The She Who Tells a Story exhibition includes the work of 4 Iranian-born artists. One of them is Gohar Dashti, and the exhibition includes 6 prints from a series of 10 called Today's Life in War. And Gohar made these in response to her own personal experience. She was born in 1980 on the border between Iran and Iraq. So the first 8 years of her life, the course of the Iran-Iraq War, were lived in an area of conflict. And she talks about how even though she may not have been sort of witnessing conflict directly, the threat of it, the sense of it, the worry of it was around her all the time. And so she's made a series of images that involve 2 models, and she really works in a directorial mode. Gohar is working with a team of assistants, so she's acting as casting director. She chose these 2 models to act as husband and wife. She also rented out space outside of Tehran where the Iranian film industry actually makes war movies. So you see in this image the tank that is positioned behind the actor seated at a table. In other images you'll see barbed wire, bombed out cars and so forth. So this is all part of this stage set outside of Tehran that she was able to use. And what you see though are the couple sort of living their everyday life. In this image having breakfast, in other images hanging the laundry, celebrating a birthday, watching television. And however, behind them or near them in every instance is some element of conflict or war. So sandbags, the artillery, armored tanks and so forth, upturned army helmets and so forth, signs of the conflict. And her point is just that when you live and work and grow up in a situation like this, when you live and work and grow up in a context such as this, that specter of war is over you all the time, and it infuses every element of your life. Even as you move past it, it sort of is this memory that you carry with you all the time. So this whole series is very poignant in that we see people living their lives. The tone of the photographs is digitally manipulated to be a little bit grayer, a little bit more muted, almost like a dream or a remembrance of something. So they're really extraordinary, very beautiful, very poetic works. As a curator who has worked in the field of photography for a number of years, I know that women have been participants, have been pioneers in photography since its inception in the mid-19th century. That's not the story that I can tell with painting and sculpture, where for centuries women were sort of kept out of academies and kept away from opportunities. So women have always been innovators in this field. The museum has presented many exhibitions about photography, women photographers. I think that current events today make the subject matter, the national identity of the artists in the exhibition, of great interest to museum goers. But the story that we tell beyond the specific content of their works through this exhibition is the same. And that is that women artists are really at the forefront of this field. They have been for a long time and continue to be.